Thank you so much, Tom, for really putting this whole conversation into a historical perspective of the incredibly important role that whistleblowers, as you said, acting in the public interest, have played throughout our history, and the continuing important role that they should play, but I think the panelists have really highlighted how whistleblowers are increasingly under threat in a way perhaps that they have never been, facing retaliation that is more severe than they have ever perhaps faced in the past. And so what I'd love to ask our panelists to talk a bit about is, why are we seeing this increased attack? Why are we seeing these increased prosecutions using the Espionage Act in the way that we are in the past couple of years? Is it due to a simple change in policy because of the Obama administration's decision? Is it due to the fact that there are more leaks happening, more whistleblowers courageously coming out? Or is it due to an increase in secrecy that we've heard discussed a bit on the panel? Is it simply that the government is engaging in more abuses that are being hidden by the public, and that's why we're seeing more of these prosecutions? I'd just be curious to hear what is the source of these increased retaliations against whistleblowers, and what impact is it having on the press?
For me, I think since 9/11, Bush at that point put in a secrecy regime after 9/11, and I felt like during the Bush years post 9/11, the pendulum swung to the right. I think I'm moving my hand to the right for you guys. And which is not unusual during a period of a national security crisis. We've done a lot of sort of crazy stuff with the Alien and Sedition Acts and with interning Japanese people. We tend to overreact after a national security crisis. I get that, but after, we're how many years into this? 14, 13 years into it. Instead of, as he promised, Obama, instead of reining in that regime and getting the pendulum back to some point of equipoise, it swung even further. And overclassification under Obama during his first year tripled what Bush had done in 7 years of his presidency. And I think the extraordinary secrecy and classification, and believe me, pretty much anything these days can get stamped classified. You would be surprised to see a Christmas card from NSA stamped classified, or a baby announcement stamped classified. But I have seen all these things. I have dealt with defending clients where words like fiber optic are classified. Words like Mogadishu are classified. Things that are clearly known to the entire planet are deemed classified by the government. And damn it, if reality knows exactly what it is, it doesn't matter if the government has labeled it classified. It is still, according to the government, a secret that you can be prosecuted for divulging. So the war on whistleblowers, I think, is one side of the same coin of overclassification. This crackdown, I see it more as a crackdown on information. It's a war on whistleblowers, it's a war on hacktivists, it's a war on journalists. And it's a war more broadly on information. And then that dovetails with the technological aspect, which has made it both easier for people to blow the whistle, and we've seen examples of mass digital whistleblowing by both Chelsea Manning and by Edward Snowden, but it has also made it easier to catch whistleblowers. And I know I'm probably about to steal one of Trevor's talking points, so before doing that, I'll just go ahead and pass it to you.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between now and previous administrations is technology. Overclassification is a huge problem, and it has been going up incredibly high in the past decade. But you have to remember, there have been leaks of classified information that have been on the front pages of newspapers for 50, 60 years, like every day. Part of the reason they won the Pentagon Papers case 45 years ago was because their Washington bureau chief wrote a long affidavit to the judge describing all of the times that presidents and heads of departments and senators and congressmen had told him classified information for the purpose of printing it. And it has been standard practice in American journalism for as long as we can count. And you know, the problem is that, you know, for 40 years, journalists defended their sources in court by refusing to testify against them. So even when they lost the Supreme Court case that didn't say that they had reporter's privilege, you know, guaranteed to them by the First Amendment, they decided that they would violate judges' orders instead of giving up their sources and go to jail. So this created a huge problem for prosecutors. So they would be sending reporters to jail rather than sources, and they realized that they would have a 3-year legal fight on their hands if they ever tried being a reporter. So it was just really hard. It was just really hard for them to prosecute sources. And until they realized, probably 6 or 8 years ago, that they actually don't need the reporters to testify against them anymore. They now can use technology against these sources. So that means that they can go to third-party email providers to subpoena emails, to subpoena phone call records, and mind you, the journalists and the source don't ever know the subpoena is happening until it's too late. So that means that the government has all the records of their phone conversations, their emails, every time that they've made plans to visit in person, and there's no way of challenging it. And so, you know, in the past 6 years, there's been 8 whistleblower prosecutions under the Espionage Act. Before that, there was 3 in our entire history. And all but one of those cases, they didn't even bother calling the reporter to testify. They didn't bother trying. And in the one case they did, it's actually one of the most famous reporters in the country, James Risen, who uncovered the first NSA scandal, warrantless wiretapping under George Bush. And a lot of people think that he is being subpoenaed not because they need his testimony, but just for retribution. And so we've come to a point where we have to change tactics in how we, as journalists, protect sources. You know, you can't just refuse to testify anymore. You actually have to move over a step and protect your conversations to begin with. You have to figure out a way to make sure that this long metadata trail isn't accessible to the government, that you're using encryption if you're talking online, that you're doubling back and being extra careful about how you are communicating, because everything you say at this point could potentially be used against your source. You know, there are a couple of reporters for the New York Times who every single government official that they've emailed in the White House are now under investigation for leaking classified information. And, you know, reporters talk to government officials all the time. You know, it's not a crime to talk to a reporter, yet it's turning into one by fiat, because all of these government officials, even if they've never even come close to leaking classified information, you know, are being questioned, have to get a lawyer, potentially having their, being fired and having their lives ruined because they talk to a reporter. And this is a direct result of all of this mass surveillance. And so really the next step in the next few years, you know, Edward Snowden has really shown a light on this mass surveillance. He's also shown reporters that they need to start using encryption. You know, he went to Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras because they understood how to use it. Actually, in fact, Glenn almost lost the story. You know, he tells the story now that it was so annoying to set up email encryption that he almost didn't do it. And so the only reason Snowden went to Laura Poitras was because she, or one of the only reasons, was because she knew how to use it. And so that's the kind of techniques that we have to start teaching journalists, but also just teaching everyday internet users, because you know, we all face some of the same problems with our privacy. You know, it's heightened for them because there are always government prosecutors looking to go after them, but in a lot of sense, we all face the same problems they do now. And so, you know, hopefully we can figure out a way to move forward to teach people how to do this in a way that's safe and secure.